Yeah, that's on minimum level there. Okay, good. Yeah. And you're basically the follow shot. Is that okay?
If I turn this on, it's not going to scream.
It's not on yet. Right there.
So I'm gonna power on this side.
Okay.
Can I power on too?
Well, no, you're on for a while. So. Should be good to go. I'll get you going. So stand by, folks. Before we start the stream, you can start the stream anytime. You did? Okay. The stream has started. Video looks good. Somebody's out of focus. Why is that out of focus? I don't know. Probably somewhere. Anytime you want to kick it off, Jane, you should be hot. Whoop, wait. Nope. Let's turn you on. Jane, give me a test level. Test.
Yes. Testing. We're good? And then do you have the handheld, Tom, just in case we need it? I don't know that we're going to need it right. Well, if we're going to do introductions, we'll need it to pass.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Are we ready to get started?
Anytime. Take it away, Miss
Well,
President.
welcome everybody to the May meeting. Is that right? May meeting of San Diego Media Pros, fourth Wednesday. Tonight we are going to take a look at interviewing and storytelling. And I'm going to be sharing the stage with Michael Towe, who is here somewhere. I'm going to take the interviewing portion of tonight's program, and he's going to talk about storytelling. So I'm wondering first, who was at Media Pro Camp? That was our last meeting about 5 or 6 weeks ago. It looks like maybe half of the audience was there. You watched the stream. Oh, sorry, Eric. I was like, somebody said something. It was really good, right? It was a really, really good event. And I think it's a great way to sort of showcase what this organization is all about. We had a very large team who came together to put together an educational day. So thank you if you were able to be there in person, or it's still on our YouTube channel if you'd like to take a look at it now. I wondered if there's anyone new tonight. A couple of people, maybe half a dozen. Hello in the back. You can come forward if you'd like. I just wanted to make a note that if you are new tonight and this is your first meeting, you are welcome to apply the fee that you paid, whether that was $15 or $20, to a membership. So just talk to David or Harold or Kevin. They will help you with that, but that's a great way to save a little bit of money on your membership and start to support the organization. Say again? Oh, you would get a, yes, you are absolutely right. Do it before the drawing and then you would get a raffle ticket. Thank you, exactly. And tonight, as part of the what we like to call the crapple. We have a number of items that were picked up at NAB. So we have a few interesting things tonight. Let's see, I have a couple of announcements. All right, I'm not going that way. Cinegear is next weekend, and we are doing some informal carpooling if anybody is interested in going. That's up in Los Angeles. It's a great couple of days of exhibits. There's also some seminars. There's a film series. So on the website, on our website, is information about just making connections with others who are trying to go up there if you are planning to go to Cinegear. Our next meeting is the fourth Wednesday in June, and that is about film festivals. Christine Gatlin is putting that together, and she's over here. And Tanya Mantooth from the San Diego International Film Festival is going to be our guest and is going to talk everything that you need to know to submit to film festivals, what programmers are looking for, and what the possibilities are. So that's going to be a great meeting. And now I would like to say thank you to our hosts. Come on up here. We are being hosted tonight by Hangar B. That's this fabulous space. By, yes, thank you. Is the handheld nearby? Mark. Tyler French.
Check. This working? No. Echo.
Okay, there it is.
That's for you.
Tyler French and Alex Davignon.
Hello.
Although I'm pronouncing it with a French accent.
That was good.
Apparently that's not necessary. And is Duffy still here?
Looks like he left, but his plane is here.
His plane is here. So tell us just a little bit about Hangar B.
We started January 2018 now, yeah, so just last January. We've been here since then. That's when we started. We wanted to make a production space, and we offer services to actors, reel services so they can have reels made from the ground up. We do self-tapes because there's not a lot of self-tape services here in town. We also have some narrative projects that we're working on of our own. And we offer stunt classes here for actors to learn some real-life hand-to-hand combat techniques from martial arts instructors, and then learn a sequence, and then we shoot that, and then we'll help them add that into their reels so they can then submit and show that they can do some hand-to-hand combat on camera. And then we're in our inaugural year of a film festival called Women Making a Scene that Tyler's spearheading. It's kind of his brainchild. And we just closed registration, and we have 121 teams from 17 different countries that have signed up. We're now gearing up for the premiere event.
Yeah.
It's going to be coming up in either late July or early August. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're up to here. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Oh, that's a great job.
I would just add that you have a voiceover booth.
We do,
like
yeah.
Inside the doors here
Yeah,
is
this
kind
is-
of their office space, and there is a voiceover booth, very well soundproofed, just considering our location here. And then also you've got a green screen.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a couple different little services in here that we can offer to production houses, and then we can also offer the entire space for rental for a half day or a full day. Like for example, we had a YouTube streamer come in, and he does like Tesla breakdowns for like the cars. So we're gonna clear out this whole space. He's gonna park 3 Teslas here, and then he's gonna kind of break them down for his YouTube thing, and then do a little driver on the tarmac. And that's kind of some of the other things that we offer here is space rental as well. Yeah.
Good. Did you have something you want to show, or not right now? We could show it later?
Show it later.
All right, let's do that.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for hosting us. I'd like to do some introductions. I'm going to pass the mic, and if you'll just quick give us your name and what you do, that would be fabulous. Bill, I'm going to start with you.
I'm Bill Johnson. This is my first time here. I work for High Moon Studios up in Carlsbad doing games.
Oh, stand up if you will.
I'm another Bill Johnston, and that happens to be my son, and I produce and narrate audiobooks in my home studio.
Hello everyone, my name's Surya Kumar, but you can call me Mickey. I'm actually a wastewater engineer, but I'm hoping to get into film stuff more. And I like to write.
I'm Eric Addison, and I have 2-year-old twins, and I'm just glad to be out of the house.
Hi. Patrick Espinosa. I'm a freelance videographer and editor, and I also do a little part-time work at UCSD in their multimedia services department.
Thank you. Jim Staler, Staler Made Communications, writer, producer, actor. Hey, Greg. And I also am in-house video producer at Sharp Healthcare.
I'm Kevin Marty. I'm freelance editor, cinematographer, and on the membership committee. So if you wanted any questions about the membership, please come and see me.
Mark Masonev, the freelance writer, producer, editor, and also on the board of the news segment. So if you need anything news-wise, you got some scoops, let me know.
Harold Frazier, writer, producer.
David Rains, actor, writer, director.
Jane Gatlin, producer, writer, actor.
Methvin, composer, sound designer, and I don't know any Russian spies.
Jeff Trober, work at Seismic Software, producer, director, DP, editor, voiceover, whatever they need done.
Erin Hogarth, I'm a writer and editor at GIA and also freelance.
Albert. Did it cut out? Okay. Albert, filmmaker, North County.
Augie Augusto, a filmmaker and a hairdresser.
I'm Marty. I'm Marty Crane, voiceover talent. I have my own studio. Like Bill, I decided to get out of the home, and I'm also here for the storytelling, the education, and the testosterone. I just love being with you guys.
Dave Olson, Legacy Videos, videographer, do a variety of events and personal histories.
Randy Gravasio, freelance videographer and editor.
Dan Roper, you'll see where I work next week, and I also do, or next month, you'll be at our place third Wednesday next month, and freelance, whatever you guys think you need done.
Great, Dan. My name's Jim Fegan. I'm a composer and sound designer.
Craig Bentley, I have a production company called imageworks.tv.
Hi, I'm Kevin Baird. I'm a multimedia artist. Yes, they still call them that at General Atomics. And these are two of my colleagues.
Hello, my name is Matt Funk. I'm an editor also at General Atomics.
I'm Catherine Perry, and I'm a photographer at General Atomics.
I never look like I want to introduce myself. Hi, everybody. I'm Mickey. I'm responsible for your social media for this group. So if you're seeing the posts, please like them. Please share them. It is informational. A lot of people don't see it. So get the word out there. We want to share it.
I'm Bob Unger. I'm a shooter, editor, and also the CFO of this organization.
Hi, my name's Bill Davis. I'm relatively new in town, about 11 months now. Moved out from Scottsdale, Arizona, and I edit a lot.
You probably saw my brother. He was moving to Arizona. I'm Greg Lefebvre. I'm a media trainer and your capable and obedient drone pilot.
I'm Tom Dunn. I run the media program over at John Paul Catholic University in Escondido.
Hi, I'm Isela Gibbs, and I'm partner
with my husband for Circa 71 Media, and we're located in Oceanside, California. And I'm the creative producer. I'm the creative producer. God, this is a strange thing.
Hi, Steve Gibbs with Circa 71 Media, and I'm the DP and video producer, I guess.
I'm James Allberger, voiceacting.com. I wrote the book on voice acting. I teach voice acting. I also do location, field sound, and audio post-production.
Hi, I'm Lois Harrington. I work with my husband Marshall, creating visual content.
She said it all.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Prieto, mortgage banker and propaganda creator.
Hi, I'm Kirsty. I'm a technical artist.
I'm Kevin Burke. I'm a freelance filmmaker and videographer. I do grip, I do gaffer, I do live streaming now.
Tom Kinnaman. My company's name is Video DNA. I do production, and I've made my living as an editor primarily.
Hi, Sasha Dappelt. I produce, write, and edit, and I like documentaries, and I also work part-time at UCSD with Patrick and Mark.
Hi, I'm Mike Towe. I'm going to leave it at that because you're going to learn way more than you want to know about me later.
Hi, I'm Bonna Van Dyke, guest of Earl Hunt.
I'm the Earl Hunt you mentioned, and I'm the fourth backup camera desperately trying to get my hard drive to work. Okay?
Well, getting your hard drive to work always is an issue. Anybody else? Thank you. Very nice. Round robin. Yes. Yep. That's right.
All right, this is a segment that we attempt to use at every meeting, a use you can use segment, and it sort of fits in well, I think, with what we're talking about here on storytelling. This is some ways to use to capture your stories. It's some interesting stuff. There's some controversial stuff, some things that'll be interesting, but I want you to look and enjoy what we've got here going on today. So first off, the Oscar cameras. These are some of the cameras that were used in the Oscars, and I will bet you one person maybe owns one of the cameras that were used here in the Oscars. We're all fighting over the Sonys and the Panasonics of what to use. But with all the tech 8K, it's fascinating to reveal it's still a conservative thing, okay, movie making. Many of the 2019 Oscar films were shot on old cameras and mastered to 2K resolution, folks, 2K. All this rushed to 4K and 8K, mastered to 2K resolution. And surprisingly or not, the only camera used was the Alexa and one Panavision and an Aton, okay? The main codec was Arri Raw 2.8K, mastered to 2K, no 8K. So don't pick this big rush that you have to have that, per se. Hollywood isn't doing it at this point, okay? The Star is Born and Green Book was shot on the Alexa Mini, the Black Panther Cold War on the Alexa XT. The Favorite was on the ArriCam LT. The Favorite and the Black Klansman used too. They have Panaflex, Millennium, Alexa 65 on Roma, Bohemian Rhapsody, the Aton, Penelope on the Black Klansman. Rhapsody used Aeroflex 35BL as well, and Vice used a number of different cameras. But you don't see your Sony a7S II here, the FS7, you don't see your C200, you don't see the Red, you don't see the Black Magic. It's not what they're using. Not that they can't be, but these are the cameras that were used on the Oscar things at 2.8K, mastered to 2.8. Just an interesting thing to understand, okay? And you get what you pay for. Have you seen this? Anybody stopped and read this on Facebook? You stopped, kind of read what was going on with this? Hands if you read it. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. This is the challenge from Wistia. Wanted to know, do companies have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a video production to get a return, or can they do something as simple as an iPhone video to get a similar compelling ads to engage viewers. So they did the same idea of 3 videos, similar targets and copy, released on YouTube and Facebook. And they measured the ROI, key performance indicators, the cost per install, and a cost per 25% view, which is what it costs to watch a quarter of the video. Okay? No surprise. You're probably, oh yeah, no big surprise here. You are correct. Storytelling means more. Coincidentally, we have a storytelling subject today. Storytelling means more. Showed the $10,000 video performed twice as well as the other 2 videos. Target, ad type, and ad copy, and the $10,000 video had a cost per install on Facebook of $23, almost $24, while the $100,000 one was over $75. Okay, so that is what they're telling you. The 10,000 performed better. 2 UK ads for the holidays demonstrated a similar result. A John Lewis ad made for $65 connected with more people than an Elton John ad made for $9 million. Okay? Video production doesn't need to be polished. The iPhone ad performed just as well and sometimes better than the ad that included Hollywood actors and a film crew. Wistia spent $1.09 on Facebook to get 1 viewer to watch 25% of the $1,000 ad and $1.53 to get the same impression for the $100,000 ad. Okay? What this means, the good news is small, large companies, you don't need to figure out how to create a huge budget. There's not much difference between the $1,000 and the $100,000 one. It's all about the story, compelling stories, which fortunately, we have a young man to tell us about that later on. And finally, should you go vertical? Yes, I know it's controversial, but I needed to put that in here. Should you go vertical? Don't be afraid, people. Don't be afraid. It's okay. Did you know 57% of all video plays worldwide are on mobile devices? 57% of all video plays. Smartphone users hold their phones vertically 94% of the time and don't like to turn them sideways and back. Okay? 94%. Vertical videos see a 90% higher viewing completion than horizontal videos. 90% higher. You can't ignore numbers like that, folks. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat are all adding support and features that push vertical video. Don't ignore vertical video. Don't just poo-poo it. Here's where they come in. Okay, you don't necessarily do a video on it or an entire movie, but they're great for product explainers. Okay, doing product explainers, in-app advertising, digital billboards on your phone, digital billboards, mobile live videos, and behind-the-scenes sneak peek videos. They're great for that. So vertical videos have their place. Don't panic. It's okay to go vertical. And that is news you can use. Thank you very much.
I'll have to play the video clips separately.
You can use this if you like. You're good either way.
Oh, I see.
You're good. Just
Awesome.
forward or back button. You should be fine.
Thank you. Tonight, the art of interviewing. So I'm Jane Hare. I'm a producer, director, writer. I'm an instructional designer, and I have been working in production my entire career. And a lot of that has been interview-based storytelling. So tonight, I'm going to share with you some things that I have learned over the years, the many thousands of interviews that I have done. But I wanted to start first with a story, because it really is all about the story. It was about 1990, and the first movie for this foursome was a smash hit at the box office. And someone thought, why don't we send this group on a concert tour? I was working for a television show that was based in New York City. It was a syndicated show. It was along the lines of Entertainment Tonight. And they picked me up in a limousine and took me to the airport, and I flew up to Providence, Rhode Island. I was supposed to document the opening dates of this concert tour, and I was to interview the 4 stars. The 4 stars were the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This was one of those more scripted interviews. Tell me about your concert tour. And they answered back something along the lines of, we're going to rock. We are coming out of our shells, and a whole lot of cowabungas. So I interviewed 4 men dressed in costume, speaking in character voices with overly exaggerated gestures. And fortunately, things got better from there. This was completely absurd. There we go. Some of you may know that I have actually been producing television and film and industrial videos my entire life. I studied broadcasting at Kent State University in Ohio, and my first job was working in Cleveland for a television show called PM Magazine. Yay, exactly. PM Magazine was huge in the late 70s, early 80s, into the late 80s. It was a national cooperative, and we produced stories locally, and then they were shared among the cooperative, and they were broadcast nationally. And I just want to point out, this was my very first shoot for PM Magazine. And my mom and dad took these pictures. They showed up on set with their camera and took photos, and I had to keep saying, Mom, it's not cool, it's not cool. And my cameraman, Casey, kept saying, Jane, don't worry. But there's something in these photos that completely gives away the fact that I am a 100% novice. Any guesses? Brand new white pants. When I look at this thing now, I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? And the other thing to notice is, of course, the size of the camera and then the audio record and video record deck, because that was how I did it in the old days. It was a 3/4 inch deck. So I actually learned what makes a good interview and a good soundbite from that first job. I was a production assistant, and one of my key responsibilities was to log interviews. We were shooting on 3/4 inch, and I logged the tapes longhand. So a word at a time, we wrote it out word by word by word. I worked for PM Magazine in 4 cities, and I worked my way up to executive producer. And then I moved to New York City, and I worked for some breakthrough storytelling shows there. I was working for MTV when they transitioned from playing music videos all day, every day, to starting to add some programming. And those shows included things like House of Style, which I worked on with Cindy Crawford, a show called Like We Care, which was for teenagers. It was kind of irreverent. We talked about tattoos and breakups and cheerleading, and I mean, it was a very fun time. And I worked in New York City for 5 years on shows like those for MTV, but also public television and for cable and syndicated shows as well. So I have been interviewing people for 30 or more years. I have interviewed music stars like the Bee Gees in their studio in Miami. There's a story there, not to be recorded. I've interviewed fashion icons like Kevin Aucoin, who was a world-famous makeup artist. We talked all about the use of color. I have worked with more than a dozen CEOs for Fortune 100 companies. I interviewed Edna Foster. She was 100 years old. We interviewed her on her birthday. She couldn't figure out why we were making such a big deal out of it. I interviewed a 2-year-old about her pacemaker, although I will tell you, and Eric, you'll know this, 2-year-olds, boy, you get one question, you get a one-word answer, and then they're off back to the play set. I interviewed at-risk youth in Harlem. This was early when video cameras were not readily available. They'd never seen themselves on TV before. And then I moved to the Twin Cities, and I was able to transition my storytelling skills and work on corporate projects with a storytelling bent. And while we talk about that all day, every day now, that was new at the time. That was a big deal to not do a scripted video with corporate executives. This idea that we would sit down and do an interview and then put together a piece, that was brand new and very cutting edge. So now just a quick definition. What is a soundbite? This is pretty obvious. A short clip cut down from a longer piece of audio or video. And in most cases, they're 30 seconds or less. Let's look at an example. Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it, filling us all with the hope and the sure knowledge that the path will be easier next time. Hillary Clinton said this. She was referring to the number of votes that she got in the primary. And regardless of your politics, you can agree that the soundbite brings up visual images in the mind of the viewer. You can see it. It's vivid, it's direct, and it's powerful. So I would summarize that the best soundbites for documentary and news, like that one, include emotion, opinion, news value, and personality. They are memorable and they are quotable. The best sound bites for industrials or corporate projects include facts, personality, and the company message. They sound familiar to the corporate communications specialist because it's something that that person wants to hear. Which means that when you're doing corporate storytelling, your job is to weave the critical key messages into an interesting soundbite, often from a person who is a scientist or a construction project manager or an HR specialist. And this person loves their job, but doesn't necessarily love being interviewed on camera. I produced and directed and wrote a segment recently for Mayo Clinic for their Office of Diversity and Inclusion. We interviewed at least 15 students and professionals and professors in 3 locations. And there were key messages that the client was looking to obtain, although they weren't communicated to the students. My job was to find authentic messages. And in editing, we were able to make things concise and colorful and then reflect the speaker's personality. So if I can get it up here on the computer, I want to show you 2 minutes of a longer segment. What do I have to do to exit? Say again? Command tab. Command tab, other programs. I might need a hand. Hang on, here, maybe it's right. QuickTime Player.
Are you just trying to get your desktop?
Yes, I am.
Command H to hide your PowerPoint.
Command what?
H is in hotel.
Okay. Aha.
It didn't work.
I can see my desktop underneath. Sorry for the delay. What do you mean by act? Sorry, I don't. Aha, there it is. Window. And play.
It was
Audio?
strange because it was in the middle
Audio?
of winter and it had been snowing. It was very, very cold at the time. But somehow I did not find the place cold at all. And I remember standing thinking, wow, if people can build an institution of such excellence in conditions like this, then this is where I want to be.
almost did not come here. I almost didn't, and then when I came, I just couldn't believe it. My second visit was a mission to figure out whether it was real or not. Could they wow me twice? And it was real.
There are people here from all over the country, all over the world, all sorts of different backgrounds. I think for students coming here, they'll be able to fit in no matter what their own background is.
Mayo is a place about working together. It was built on that philosophy originally. And working together is something we take for granted, and it's not something that can be taken for granted everywhere.
Everybody has their own wisdom. People have their unique creative ways of solving problems, or they have these life experiences that just bring great knowledge to the table.
More than learning from their culture, you can learn from their science and how they do science in their own home country. People answer scientific questions in different ways.
Here at Mayo, the specific studies that are being done, it's incredibly diverse. That adds a lot of values to getting new ideas on what is the next question to explore.
If you have a diverse team, there's likely going to be one person in there that fully understands and appreciates where this patient is coming from, that socioeconomic background, what it is that is making their illness more complicated than it is.
It's been shown that groups where people are challenging each other will make progress much faster. And so it's better for science and it's better for education. That's a cultural norm at Mayo. It comes because there's a wonderful investment in success, so people have enough resources to get the job done and they're willing to share.
So let's see if I can find my way back. Oh, goodness. Hit the space bar a few times? And then how do I get it full screen? I'm full screen. Yay! All right. Let's continue. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my process for the interviewer. How do I like to do my interviews? How do I like to create interviews? One of the things that I like to do is what I call work backward. And what that means to me is that the answers to me are much more important than the questions. Although my corporate clients will sometimes disagree. They often want to nail down the questions in finite detail. And for me, what's much more important is to find out what do they want that employee, what do they want that corporate executive to say exactly? And I create a list of bullet points, and then that's what I know that I'm working for. The questions are almost incidental to that. And when possible, I will pre-interview everybody because I just think that there's value in having had even a brief conversation. And often people will tell me things on the phone that then come back later, then I want to bring that up in the interview. And I'll say, remember when you told me the watermelon story? And they'll be like, oh yeah, and then we'll be able to kind of strike up from there. But pre-interviews are a good way to identify what is necessary to talk about and what is not necessary to talk about, because you often have a finite amount of time for an interview. One of the things that I like to do on the day of shooting is be sure that there is a peaceful environment. A lot of times there's a big crew, there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of conversation, and then in comes a person who's not very familiar with being interviewed, and it can be very confusing and can sometimes raise anxiety and create distractions. So when the crew is there, we're getting everything ready, we can have sort of as much conversation as we want. And when it's time for the interview, I want it to be a very controlled environment. If the person comes in and they're ready to create a ruckus, that's fine. But typically, we want to have it be very peaceful, have the space be ready to go. And then listening is the most important piece. I noted that clients listen for content, but that my job as an interviewer is to listen for content and delivery and brevity. You know, I'm listening for, is a soundbite too long? Is it too short? Do they actually say anything? Does it have any context? Are there lots and lots and lots of words without really anything being said, so that then you're thinking, well, now in edit, what am I going to possibly do? So I'm always listening for, did they say it well, or did they just say it? Can it be edited down to a key message? And can you have them rephrase it? Can you basically have them do it again? And I do this frequently. I ask one question, I will ask another question in another way, I will ask the question again in a third way, if it's necessary to try to get to the key message that I am looking for. Sometimes it's almost a dance during an interview, in that you'll be interviewing, especially a corporate person, and they'll say, yeah, but I said that. And you have to find a way to say, yes, you did say that, but you didn't say it in a way that I can use it. And so there's a very careful way that you need to kind of word that so that you're not insulting. Like, yeah, you did answer the question, I get it. But you didn't answer it in such a way that I'm actually able to use it as a soundbite without having to have B-roll cover on every portion of the soundbite. So I also want to talk a little bit about what I tell the interviewee. So I always start an interview with having them say their name, how to spell it, and give me their exact title, just so we've got that for the record. You always want to talk to them about whether they're looking at the interviewer, or are they looking into the camera. I encourage them to ignore everything else that's happening in the room. They do not need to they do not need to acknowledge the camera person, the audio person, or anybody else. It is all about the conversation. I like to reinforce that smiling is good, that they can use their hands. One of the things I like to be sure to talk about, and this is especially important with women, I have found, is that you need to let the interviewee know that you are not going to be saying very much. I'm going to ask a question, and then I'm going to be silent. And I will sit there, and it's like the dog in the back of the car. We're sort of nodding, but there's no, yes, I hear you, oh, I agree. And women especially, we like to give one another vocal feedback. And so in an interview, I've found that they will think it's very disconcerting if I'm silent. And it's purposeful that you have to be silent. I'll encourage interviewees to incorporate the question into their answer. You'll always want to have them avoid saying they're thinking words out loud at the beginning or in the middle of sentences. So you don't want every sentence to begin with so, because yes, you may be able to edit it off, but it's annoying. Or if they have kind of a buzzword. I interviewed somebody recently and she kept saying right, blah, 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 right. And then every time that's going to need to be edited out. And this particular project does not have a lot of B-roll, so it's going to be kind of complex. And then it's not necessary for interviewees to say, as I said before, or as I mentioned before. I always tell them that, because when you ask the same question more than once, they like to acknowledge that they've already talked about it. But you don't need that. You're only going to use them saying something once in the course of a video. So next, these are a couple of freeze frames that I made from the Mayo Clinic video. And I put these all on one page just because, of course, everybody is looking at the camera. And we tried to capture some of their natural personalities. And to do this, I used a piece of equipment that I wasn't familiar with until only recently, called an iDirect. Is anybody familiar with iDirect or eyeliner? So a couple people. It's a camera tool that you can use for direct-to-camera presentations. This is one of my corporate clients. This gentleman does not like being on camera. But once we started using the iDirect, he was a little more agreeable. So an iDirect is also called an eyeliner. It's a piece of equipment that you put on the camera, and the camera lens goes right here. And as the producer, you're looking into this part, which is a mirror. So in practice, here's our camera. Here's the eye liner or eye direct. There's your producer. And I really should be looking up into the image of the eye direct. But there's Scott, and what he sees is this. And for some reason, this makes people who don't like to be on TV much more comfortable. I don't know if it is about the fact that you're not necessarily making eye contact for a very long period of time, because when you're doing interviews, you know, it's all about eye contact and you're sort of staring at the person or they're staring into the camera. But this has made everyone that I have ever worked with the eyeliner much more comfortable, and people request it. What to do when it's not going well. And I have a couple of stories. I had a really, really bad interview once. I was interviewing a 70s rocker and his manager, and it was a Friday night, and I was working for the show in New York, and I was new, and he and the manager were in no place to be doing a video interview, and I kept trying because I didn't want to have to call my boss in New York and say, I didn't get it. But eventually I did. I had to call Andrea in New York and say, Andrea, it didn't work out. We got a couple people here who are a little messed up. And we ended up going back the next day and trying again. I ended up with enough, I think, to do about 3 sentences in the interview. Otherwise, it had a whole lot of voiceover and a whole lot of his new and old music videos. There was another instance where I was doing a corporate interview for a major retailer, and there was a fashion designer, a young man. He just could not get it together. I don't know what was going on that day, but we tried for easily 45 minutes. And it was one of those circumstances where he had to be in the video. There wasn't any saying, like, let's just set this aside, let's do this as a voiceover. You know, it was political. They identified the 10 people. You're going to interview the 10 people. I remember he got up and walked away for a while. He kind of pulled himself together. He sat back down. We ended up with 3 chunks that I was able to make 1 sentence. That was enough for the video. And of course, I don't know if we covered the beginning and end of his soundbite, or if he was on camera for barely long enough to show his lower third, and then we covered the rest. But those were 2 particularly challenging situations. Sometimes what I like to do when things aren't going well, I like to just stop the camera. There isn't any reason to record all of the coaching, and I think that makes the person uncomfortable. So stop the camera, just kind of take a second. I recently learned a technique that I wasn't familiar with, and it's something called a 50-50. Anybody familiar with that phrase? Apparently, it's like a secret language that when you want half of the crew to leave the room, you stop tape or stop the recording, and you say, let's try a 50-50. And then half the crew gets up and departs. And the interviewee isn't really aware, but suddenly there's fewer people, so they're less nervous. That one's hard. That one's really hard. Let's try some of these other suggestions. Sometimes I need to reassure people that we're using only the good parts. They really get in their own heads, and once it starts going badly and they get nervous, then you just kind of need to say, listen, I'm going to be taking 5 sentences out of this entire interview, and I promise you it's going to be the things you said best. Sometimes there are distractions, like there are too many people in the room, as I mentioned. Sometimes the interviewee is on a critical deadline and they just really need to check their phone. And by stopping tape and just saying, hey, do you just need to take a minute? They'll say, yeah, I just need to really check this message. And then you can move on. Sometimes they need a sense of how much longer this is going to continue. Sometimes it's just agony. And they just really want to know. It's only 10 more minutes, at which time I'm starting to prioritize. What do I do for messaging? And sometimes the person is worried about how they look. I was interviewing Yoko Ono We were in Central Park, we were in Strawberry Fields, and I was there to talk to her about the 10th anniversary of John Lennon's death. And she's known for being difficult, and we were kind of trying to get started, and I could tell something was wrong. And we figured out pretty quickly that she didn't like the lighting, that something was going on that day, and she thought that she was not going to look good. And my DP put up just a white reflector board, which took 10 years off of her, and she immediately relaxed. We showed her what she looked like on TV. So sometimes it's about just reassuring people that they're doing well, that they look good. They just need to hear that, that the team, the crew, is happy with the interview. A couple of other things, have everyone stop talking. Sometimes there's too many voices, too many corporate communicators giving you ideas on what the person should say. Sometimes you need to offer some sentence starters. And I like to have these prepared actually before I go into an interview. I know what key sound bites I'm really going for, so I like to have notes of those ready to go. Things like, if I'm going to ask the question, why do you use interviews in video production? Rather than them starting out with, I like to use interviews because, you might say something like, the power of interviews is. And then I mentioned prioritizing content. Figure out what you need and how quickly can you get the interview done. Because sometimes it's just, and this is especially in corporate, in the world of corporate and industrials, sometimes it's just better to move on and even bring the person back another time. So to wrap things up, the best sound bites, they are specific, they are passionate, and they are memorable. These two gentlemen in the lower corner are Medtronic employees, employee number 3 and employee number 4. And Medtronic now has, 60,000 employees. And I had the pleasure of interviewing them multiple times. I know the one on the left has now passed, and the one on the right I'm not entirely sure about. This day we were doing a birthday greeting, and these two just cracked themselves up. They were singing happy birthday. They were doing kind of a Laurel and Hardy routine. It was one of those moments in time that you sort of don't want to end. Because not only were we capturing their stories, but we were also capturing history. This is part of the archives of this corporation. Some of these interviews that I've done are part of the history of a industry. And it's one of the things that I like to remember is that interviews are critical pieces of storytelling, critical pieces of our history, and thank you. And then that's me. And now, Michael Towe is going to talk to us about storytelling. Are there any questions? I could answer a couple of questions if anybody has any while Michael Towe gets set up. Yes?
You mentioned doing a pre-interview.
Yes.
What do you try to accomplish in that? How much time is just to do a pre-interview?
Yes, sorry. Tom, I'm going to pull this audio. Let me know.
Usually, if I can get, it depends, usually about 15 minutes, but if, let's say you were doing a documentary, you may want to pre-interview for an hour. You're really trying to identify what stories can this person tell you once you are videotaping. We have a mic.
Use your loud voice, John.
So you had an interview with and they were loaded. So
Yes.
they're difficult to work with.
Yes.
Okay. So have you gone in the other direction? You got somebody that's so tight, hey, let's stop for a minute and have a beer and relax.
I have not, but I could see that there could sometimes be value in that.
Oh, come clean. Come on, come clean.
It's recorded on YouTube for all to see.
Working now. Questions? Come on, Kevin. Kevin's got a question. Coming over here for Kevin. Stand by.
Tom, I'm going to give you audio for a moment.
Go ahead.
To see if you have it.
Thanks.
Kevin Marty over here, ladies and gentlemen.
You were talking about sometimes you have the person look into the camera and sometimes they look off the camera a little bit. What is your rule, or when do you do either one of those? Or is it just the type of content you have, or is it for the person to feel, a little more at ease, or what were you trying to go for?
It's sometimes driven by the project, but what I can tell you is since the eyeliner became part of my toolkit, I am using that as often as possible because I like the direct into the camera look of the interviews. There's a personalness, that's not exactly a word. There's an intimacy to it that I like.
Thank you.
And not everyone's comfortable being a spokesmodel, but that just eliminates that.
It really, you're just saying that it eliminates that the people don't want to be a spokesmodel, but somehow that use of the mirror it just adds a level of separation, and people really like it. All right, take it away.
Hi, guys. So, quick question before we start this thing, because part of my presentation is to do a breakdown on a simple 3-act story structure, and it's helpful if you have seen the film that we're going to do the breakdown on. And depending on gender and age in the room, that could vary quite drastically. So I'm going to ask you if you've seen a film. Put your hand up if you have. We're going to do 3 different films. Put your hand up for each one that you've seen. First, the original Star Wars, 1977. That's a pretty big chunk of the room. The original Toy Story, like 1990, 2 or 3? Not as many. The original Wizard of Oz from the 30s. Yeah, I think Wizard of Oz might have it. So let's do Wizard of Oz. All right, so this was I originally created this presentation to give to the American Marketing Association because as video producers, more and more we're telling stories as opposed to just putting CEOs in front of cameras and letting them yammer on and on and on. So I'm kind of going to go the opposite of what Jane just taught you and suggest that you don't do that unless clients absolutely want you to do that, because I don't think it's all that effective anymore. People need stories as opposed to data. So let's get this thing going. So this is me. I was born in 1966 to a single mother. I was born in Concord, California. Does anybody know where Concord is? Some Cocoa County folks. Concord, for those of you that don't know, is up in the Bay Area. It's East Bay. It's probably as far east from Oakland as Santee is from San Diego. At some point, I dreamed of becoming a famous cowboy. Either that or there was a guy walking through the neighborhood with a pony and a cowboy hat, and there were some pictures taken. This was my safe space when I was a kid. Who you're looking at here are my grandparents. This is my grandmother. Her name was Lily Wilkins. She was born the youngest of 9 kids, born and raised on a cotton farm in Russellville, Arkansas. She was one of the toughest ladies I've ever met. This lady on the other end is my great aunt Cecil. That was one of her sisters. This gentleman in the middle, Ed Richter, this was my grandfather. My grandfather was so special to me. He taught me a lot of things about life. He also taught me how to weld, because he was a steam fitter welder. He worked built a lot of the refineries up in that area, for those of you that are from that area, you know where Antioch, Pittsburgh is, Richmond. So he worked building all of those refineries. Anybody ever driven by a refinery? You know that smell? It's like sulfur and petroleum and ugh. I love that smell. Because that was the smell of my grandfather. That mixed with a Lucky Lager beer. Does anybody remember Lucky Lagers? They had like this, like a puzzle on the bottom of the cap. That's what my granddad drank. So that refinery smell and Lucky Lager, that's such a great smell for me. This was my inspiration. In 1982, this is my wife, Tony Towe. You have to say the name together because it runs together really well. So she has to, she's actually, where is she? She's actually at the goals game tonight because it's a playoff game. They're in the third round. I would be there, but I'm here with you guys. I met her in 1982. This is a photo from the Christmas dance that we went to. And she couldn't, this was like the first time I could take her out because she couldn't date. I was 16 and she was 14 when we met. Yeah, and we're still together. We still kind of like each other. We work together. She's the producer in my company. This is 1986. This is when we got married. You can tell it's 1986 because of the giant shoulder pads on her wedding dress, right? You can also tell that I was a complete idiot because I got a black tux and white socks. What an idiot, right? Little tiny church out in El Cajon where we got married. Back then, this was my career. I came to production through the time-honored tradition of driving dump trucks for a living, man. I worked for a paving and grading company called Jane Hare. So we put blacktop in, right? Asphalt, which is another great smell for me. Because at the time we had 2 little kids, so the smell of asphalt and diesel fuel was money, man. For me, that was the smell of money. I was always interested in production though, and I always had some side hustle going on, doing a wedding, doing an event, doing some corporate thing. And then I got a new career. In 1995, I was hired by Qualcomm Incorporated as an editor for them. This is the company, that was early on in the company. I was like employee number 3,500. Really interesting time to work for them. Things were really looking up. You could tell I finally got some fashion sense. I figured out what a pork pie was, got rid of the white socks, right? Moving up in the world. Things were going great. Had the nice cushy corporate job. And this was my change, or as we'll talk about later, my inciting incident, right? This was when, in 2004, Qualcomm closed the production department. Said, we're an engineering company. We're not involved in production. That's not our business model. We're just going to outsource it. We're going to lay you guys off and outsource it. And my brilliant wife, while I was all bummed out, said, well, if they're going to outsource it, just buy one of their edit systems, buy one of their cameras, and become the guy they outsource it to. And I went, Tony Towe, you're brilliant. So I bought an Avid Media Composer from him, bought a UVW 100B half-inch Betacam camera. Anybody remember those? That was the cheap Betacam camera. And I started my company, which was M2 Digital Post Incorporated. Started out doing a lot of stuff for Qualcomm, built the company from that, started doing work for other people around town, built the client base. And this has been my career, the success in my career. I've got 17 Telly Awards. I have 5 Emmy Awards. That just means that I've lived long enough to collect these things. This was actually an acceptance of an Emmy last year with, for those of you that know Mike Brueggemeyer, he was the director on the project that won. He did it in a dinosaur costume. But it was a black tie event, and if you look, you can see we made a black tie out of gaff tape. The best part of this was him and I went backstage during the day and hid the T-Rex suit back there. Because when for regional Emmys, they announce you in groups. So there's like usually, a lineup of 8 or 10 people back there to accept. So we made sure we got in the back of the line when they announced that we won, or I'm sorry, we were awarded an Emmy. You don't win them, you're awarded them. And we were in the back putting him in a dinosaur suit and inflating it, and the crew was looking at us like, what the hell are these guys doing? This has been really my life success. So what we're looking at here, this was taken at the Chandelier Bar in Vegas at the Cosmopolitan. Has anybody been to the Chandelier Bar? I feel so friggin' pretty in the Chandelier Bar. It's like all of this like crystal, it's a wonderful place. And if you go there, order the Verbena Margarita. Write that down, Verbena Margarita. It's not just a drink, it's a physical experience. I'll leave it at that. You can thank me later. This is obviously me, my wife. This is my daughter, Danielle. my son Mike. This is my daughter-in-law Vanessa. These people are two complete randos. Because when I'm in Vegas, if you come up to me and go, will you take a picture of my family? I go, hell yeah, and I take the picture, and then I make you take a picture with my family. And one of these days, facial recognition on Facebook is going to be great. And I'm going to be in so many, all these people are going to go, why am I in this guy's picture? All right, here's my bio. Michael is the owner of M2 Digital Post Incorporated. Actually, it's M2 Video Productions now. A production and post-production company in Santee, California. He has worked as a writer, editor, and producer for over 25 years, specializing in corporate broadcast and film production. In that time, he's been awarded 17 Tellys, 5 Emmys for his work. Yay. So if this is a talk about storytelling, why have we spent all this time talking about me? Because it was a story. Right? I told you about me in two ways. I told you a story about me and my life. Hopefully there was some type of an emotional connection while I was telling you that story. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you know what my grandfather smelled like, right? And the other way that I gave you that information was this, a great big chunk of data. And my argument is the story is more compelling, more memorable, more of a connection between us than just delivering data. So my challenge to you is to stop delivering data and start delivering stories for your clients. And they're going to kick, and they're going to scream, and they're going to not want to do it. But you have to keep challenging them to do it, because that's what people listen to, that's what people connect with. And why is storytelling important? It engages an audience. It makes them want to watch. We're at a point now where these kids today, as soon as they get off my lawn, they understand media, right? Millennials, Gen Z, they grew up with it. It's been pumped in their face for every single day that they've been alive. And if you don't give them something other than just data, they're gone. They're not going to pay attention, and they can notice a sales pitch like that. You have to engage with them. Why? We like storytelling, right? We've been doing it since we were cavemen and women living in caves. We painted the stories on the wall. At this point in time, it's baked into our DNA. If you tell a good story, people have no choice but to listen. It's just who we are. And it gives the audience something, which I just talked about. It inspires audiences' emotions, right? We have to connect on emotion. Emotion first. And why emotion? Why is it important? Well, this guy here, Antonio Damasio, is a professor of neuroscience at the University of Southern California. He decided he wanted to do a study to figure out how important emotion is in decision making, right? And so he got a hold of a study group of people who had lost the connection. They'd had some type of accident, and they had lost the connection between the emotional side of their brain and the critical, analytical, thinking side of their brain. The two couldn't connect. The wires had been cut. And so what did he discover? The conclusion was that they were capable of rational processing of information about alternative choices, but they were unable to make a decision because they lacked any sense of how they felt about one option or the other. It's the feeling, the emotion, that drives the decision. You don't go, hey, I'm going to have that chocolate chip cookie because I know it's got flour and eggs and some chocolate chips. And no. You go, I want that chocolate chip cookie because it tastes so good, and when it's baking, it reminds me of being a kid when my mom made it. It's emotional. You make that decision based on emotion. Some other studies. fMRI, so functional magnetic resonance imaging. This studies, it's a real-time picture of your brain and what it does while you're doing things. So this study shows that people primarily use the emotional parts of their brain when they're evaluating brands. Not the data part, the emotional part. Emotional response to an ad has a greater influence on purchasing the ad's content. 3-to-1 in television commercials, 2-to-1 in print ads. It's the emotion. And if you don't believe this, I challenge you to go and watch any political commercial produced ever. They're not standing up there and giving you data on what they plan to do to fix the problem. They're appealing to your emotion, one way or the other, because that's how we make decisions. Advertising Research Foundation studies concluded that likability is the measure most predictive of whether an advertisement will increase a brand's sales. Likability. Do they like you? Now, this isn't to say that we don't use data to make the decision, but I would argue that how we use that data is to justify the emotional decision that we've already made, right? I want to buy this car. Why? Because you like the friggin' car, right? But you'll use the data of, well, it gets 50 miles to the gallon to justify your decision that was based on emotion. So story inspires emotion. And if story inspires emotion, and we use emotion for purchasing, or likability that leads us to purchasing, then story is hugely important. So what is story? Story is based on simple structures. And the most simple one out there is a 3-act story. And I use this in corporate storytelling mostly because corporate storytelling is short. We have a short amount of time to deliver a message, so a 3-act structure works brilliantly. This structure has been around for millennia, right? So we're going to look at a 3-act structure based around The Wizard of Oz. First thing you have is the main character, which is obviously Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Every story is about one main character, and the change that that character goes throughout the story. Now, lately we've been taking multiple stories and throwing them together, right? Like Game of Thrones has a lot of different storylines going, but each storyline is about one character, and the change that that character goes throughout the story. The story's going to follow, I just said this, the changes that the character goes through. They follow this time-honored structure. The basic structure is 3 acts. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. So let's talk about the 3 acts. The first act is the setup, right? This is one of the shorter acts. What's in that act? We introduce the main character. We're introduced to Dorothy. We're introduced into the world that they live in, right? It's this black and white sepia world. We learn the characters that are around them. We develop an emotional attachment to the character in the first act. And Wizard of Oz did a wonderful job of this by you immediately were so sympathetic for Dorothy because I can't remember her name. No, the lady that was the witch, but I can't remember what her name was in the real world. Mrs. something. Anyways, she was going to take the dog. Remember, she was going to take Toto and have it destroyed, right? So you are immediately got this emotional connection with Dorothy as this character that you just feel for and are sympathetic for. In the end of the first act, there's an inciting incident. And this inciting incident is what's going to propel your character off onto their adventure, right? In Wizard of Oz, obviously, the tornado. That's the inciting incident. That's going to send Dorothy off into Act 2. This is also where suspension of disbelief happens. Everybody know what suspension of disbelief is? Yeah? So that has to happen in the first act, right? It happens a little bit late. It's after she gets into Munchkin Land, and we discover that there's magic in the world. And she has the ruby slippers. And there's a witch who has magic. There's a good witch and a bad witch. You have to do this suspension of disbelief in the first act. If we didn't find out about all of this magic and the magic of the shoes until we got to the third act, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, oh yeah, click your heels, it's all done. You would not buy that shit at all, right? You have to do suspension of disbelief in the first act. Act 2. Act 2 is usually the longest act. This is where all of the confrontation, all of the challenges happen. In Act 2, our hero will learn new skills and abilities. They're going to make new friends. You know, for Dorothy, it's the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion, also Glinda. So she's making new friends, she's learning new abilities. Many times they meet some type of mentor who's going to empower them to get through these challenges. In Wizard of Oz, I would argue it's Glinda, but it's also the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion. They also empower her and help her overcome these challenges. Conflict happens to our hero. Can he or she achieve these goals? Can they face these struggles and get to the other side of them? Many times this is where the crushing defeat happens to our character, right? The one thing that's just like, oh, how are they ever going to get past this? And for Dorothy, it's when she's captured, she's thrown into the witch's tower, and the wicked witch brings out the hourglass, and you've got this much time to live. What a crushing defeat. That's it. That's all the time you've got, right? And you as an audience member are like, oh, how is she ever going to get past this? Act 2 climaxes when a plan is developed to overcome all of these challenges. And in Wizard of Oz, it's that moment when the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man decide they're going to knock the palace guards over the head, grab their uniforms, get into the castle and save Dorothy, right? That's the end of Act 2. We have a plan to go and save this likable hero. Act 3 is the resolution. It's when the Wicked Witch is taken down, Dorothy throws the water on her, she melts away. Our hero overcomes unbelievable odds to become successful, right? And it's a giant happy ending. Unless, of course, it was written by Shakespeare, then it's a huge tragedy. Dorothy dies, the Scarecrow dies, they all die, right? So that's your endings. It's either a happy ending or it's a tragedy. So that is simple 3-act story structure that you can apply to your corporate video. And what I'm going to show you here is a corporate video I did for Sullivan Solar Power. And Sullivan Solar Power, I kept trying to push them to do some type of storytelling. And they kept coming back to me and going, we're a solar power company, man. We put panels on the roofs of buildings. We don't have any stories. And I went, no, you have a story. We just need to find it. And one day my contact there called me up and she said, I need you to go to Temecula and film an event we're doing. I said, okay, what's the event? Well, we're giving a guy a solar power system on his house. Okay, cool. What's the story on the guy? Well, he's an ex-Marine. He was in Afghanistan and he stepped on an IED and he lost both legs and one of his arms. And so we're going to give him a solar power to help with the air conditioning cost in the summer. I said, I will go and I will shoot your event and I'll use about 10 seconds of it. But while I'm there, I want to sit down and I want to do an interview with this guy. And I want to do an interview with his wife. Because in my brain, every time somebody does one of these stories, they do the interview with the guy, but the wife went through it too, right? So let's get the wife's side of the story as well. So we went up there, we shot it. This is what we wound up producing.
I joined the Marine Corps in '07. I went to boot camp.
Oh, really? Is it not gonna play? Hold on, I can fix this, man. My dad's he's a TV repairman, he's got a bitchin' set of tools. I knew Addison would get that reference. Let's see, I have a backup copy. Let's see if it's here. Yeah, right? Let's see if it's on this one. And if not, I actually have, what's Vice President, use package. If not, I got it on an iCloud account too. Is it? No, it's back up here. It's this one. Let's see if this works. No sound.
I joined the Marine Corps in '07. I went to boot camp. Then I went through a School of Infantry. And then I was assigned to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines out of Camp Pendleton. My second tour was to Afghanistan, and that was in 2010. We were going to target a building of interest for us. It's one building that the locals didn't want to be around. So we had to go investigate it. We had suspected it was an IED making compound. Multiple warnings that an IED was present, and I ended up striking one. Pretty much instantaneously lost my legs. Just barely left anything holding them together. I didn't even realize my arm was injured though. I was so much pain from the legs that I really didn't assess my situation. Like Corman couldn't give me morphine because I was so far gone that he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to revive me if I went under. So for 18 minutes, I pleaded with him, and I kind of did the scenario in my head where it was like pleading with God, basically, if you're gonna take me, please take me now. If not, can you please nail me up because I'm hurting? I'm here. I survived because I had a great team, and God kept everyone calm in their hands, really true, and I was lucky. My body does run a lot hotter because I don't have the area to cool the blood as a person with all their appendages.
Juan has the air conditioning going on 24/7, so I know this is gonna help him be comfortable.
Here I run the air conditioner to stay cool, and that was taking a huge toll, upwards of $600 a month, on my bills. So I'm just sheer blessed that I found Sullivan to help me out, yeah.
The day that I found out Sullivan was gonna donate to us, it meant a lot to us.
We knew it was something that we wanted to do, but just didn't feel we could afford it. So when they said they were gonna donate, it was just like, wow, there's really no words to describe a company doing that.
We heard that his home was being built, and we saw that solar could be a solution to help reduce his electric bill. So we were very, very excited to donate solar.
So we now have a 9.5 kilowatt, 32 panel system on this house, and it's ready to gear up for Juan, and we couldn't be more excited.
Sullivan told me I'm gonna be saving over the next 20 years $130,000, and that's just like, well, you don't think about it, but that's a lot of money. I mean, that money, is gonna go to my future for my kids, college, education. Energy independence is important to me because it just feels like it's something that people fight over. It's one of the things that we go to wars over. Why wouldn't we be willing to switch over to solar or to switch over anything that's more environmentally friendly when it can help kind of reduce that impact?
I'm an artist that recycles, so I believe that that's very important for the world. I think a lot of people need to stop and think like, hey, we need to take care of our environment, and this is the earth that we live in and breathe in.
You have to start thinking about your children. You have to start thinking about those that come after you. And you can't be selfish and destroy a planet and not expect to feel bad about it when you have to tell your kid, well, I'm sorry, I didn't do my part, and now you don't have clean water or clean air. War has made me more aware of that issue. What would I say to the guys at Sullivan? I mean, like I said, we had conversations every day. They helped my wife out with the trash cans. They seemed just like my boys.
Thank you for inviting us to your family. We feel very blessed to have met you guys and have you guys gave us this great gift. We can't thank you enough. We really appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts.
They gave us a gift that me and my wife will enjoy for the rest of our lives, and that will actually really help us. So I don't know if a thank you is more than enough, but thank you a million times.
Thank you. So, taking what we learned about story structure, let's apply that to this corporate video and look at that story structure breakdown on this corporate video. So who was our main character? Juan, right? Juan's obvious our main character. He goes through the biggest change throughout this thing. Using our Wizard of Oz analogy, who is Sullivan's solar power? Yes. This is where the client always gets tripped up. The client wants to be the likable hero. You are not the likable hero. To use the Star Wars analogy, you are not Luke Skywalker. You are Yoda. You are the one that empowers the likable hero to achieve lofty goals, right? Your client's always going to want to be the likable hero. It's your job to talk them out of it. They're not. They're the one who empowers the likable hero. So in The Wizard of Oz, it would be Glinda or, you know, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. So in the setup, we introduce the main character. We do that pretty quickly. There was a little bit of an editing cheat in this, in the sense that before you find out about him stepping on an IED, we're always in this shot. We're always in this tighter close-up shot. As soon as we talk about him stepping on that IED, it pulls back farther to reveal more of his damaged body. Unfortunately, I couldn't get back as far as I wanted to. I didn't have enough of his legs in there, or lack thereof. It introduces the world that he lives in. We did that. And we develop an emotional attachment to the character. In that first act, where he's explaining all of the challenges he's got, was there an emotional attachment? I think there was. There's an inciting incident which will propel our character on an adventure. What was the inciting incident? The IED, absolutely. That changed his life forever and changed the trajectory of it and sent him off on an adventure, good or bad, he's on an adventure. Now we're into Act 2, where the confrontation happens. Our hero starts to learn new skills and abilities. Well, of course he had to learn new skills and abilities. He's only got one arm now, right? Didn't go a lot into that. Conflict happens in our hero. Can he achieve these goals? Can he face these struggles? The nugget of information when I did the pre-interview with him, when he said, yeah, man, my body, I don't have enough surface area to cool my blood because I've lost 2 legs and most of my arm. I would have never thought about that. None of us would have, because we're not in his position, right? But that was an amazing challenge. The guy lives in Temecula in the summer, running the air conditioner all day long. $600, $800 bills. Crushing defeat happens. I would argue that the crushing defeat is those $600, $800, bills that he's getting for his power. How the heck is a guy who's now living on a military retirement, maybe some disability, going to pay that? We climax Act 2 with the plan that's developed. Sullivan Solar Power is going to give him this solar power system that's going to save him from this, change his life. What did he say? It's going to save him $130,000 over the next 20 years, which is going to go to his daughter's education. Pro tip, the image there, that wasn't his daughter. That was like his niece or something, but it's editing. And then we're into Act 3, the resolution. Our hero overcomes these unbelievable odds to become successful, and we have a happy ending. Simple 3-act story structure applied to corporate storytelling. And you don't have to have some, I mean, this was absolutely an amazing story to get to tell, but you don't have to have that, right? Hell, make up stories. And look at the insurance industry for that. Look at the television commercials that Geico puts out. Or is it Allstate with the Mayhem guy, right? Those are just made up. And the insurance company has to make them up because, my God, what a boring ass product to have to try and sell, right? So you got to come up with some type of cool story. So if your client doesn't have a great story, make one up. Did you have an emotional connection with Juan? Did we achieve that? All right. That's what we're going for, because remember, going back to the earlier part of this, that's what people are going to make the buying decision on, the emotional connection. More importantly, did you feel an emotional connection to Sullivan Solar Power, the client? I would argue that stories like this, if you're sitting down and you're faced with the decision of Sullivan Solar Power or, I don't know, any other one out there you want to pick, Vivint or whoever, you're going to remember this guy. And you're already going to have that emotional connection with Sullivan because of this. This is also something I did for Sullivan, and I will preface this by saying Sullivan Solar Power and the gentleman you will see in here, Daniel Sullivan, I like the guy a lot. Really nice guy. But this is the stuff that we did for them early on.
Hi, I'm Daniel Sullivan, President and founder of Sullivan Solar Power. I want to thank you for your interest in being part of the solar energy revolution. Without people like you, we can't realize our vision of moving our region and ultimately the world away from fossil fuels to a renewable energy future. In the past year, there's been a lot of uncertainty and confusion about the future of solar in the state of California. Between the investment tax credit possibly expiring, the development
Immediately Charlie Brown's teacher, right? There's no reason for me to watch this. This is just a guy standing there giving me data. And as nice as the guy is, and as great as his talking points are, I'm not getting anything out of it, right? I'm not getting any connection. Did he like it? Originally he did, yeah. And I kept beating on him to go, let's stop doing this. So. This last thing I'm going to show you is, this is something that I found scrolling through Reddit one day on the Free Flight subreddit, which is a subreddit for paragliders and hang gliders. And this is how you can have a 3-act story structure without any dialogue whatsoever. There's a couple of words at the beginning. I will guarantee that there was dialogue that you don't hear, but you're not going to hear it. There is no dialogue. So let's walk through this, looking at 3-act story structure. So here's act. Our characters. We set up the world that they're in, right? They're on the side of a mountain. They're going to go hang gliding. And off we go.
Are you ready for run? Yes. 3, 2, 1, go. Run, 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 run.
This right here is the end of Act 1. This is the inciting incident. For those of you that aren't catching this, he ain't strapped in. This poor bastard's going on a vacation hang glider flight and nobody strapped him in, right? The only thing keeping him from death is hanging on. Let's go to Act 2, shall we? Act 2 is a longer act. So we're having some challenges. And right, we might be able to land there. Okay, this is looking good. Maybe we're gonna get down here. Oh shit. No, I think you can all probably guess that coming up is our pressure feet. gonna make it? Tell me you are not riveted right now, right? And no words. There's words. We can't hear them. There's words, but it's freaking riveting, right? Is it gonna be a happy ending? Is it gonna be a tragedy? It's just grass, just a grass landing strip. He lived. He lived. He had I believe it was a separated elbow and maybe a broken arm, his left arm that came down, but he lived through it and said, as soon as I heal up, I'm gonna go do it again and I'm gonna strap in this time. So that's the type, I mean, that's simple 3-act story structure right there, right? These are the kind of stories that you need to be telling. So find a story and tell it. This is my contact information if you want to get a hold of me. Since we switched presentations, this has actually changed. It's Mike at m2videoproductions.com. But this will still get to me if you send it there. My website, this is also changing to M2 Video Productions. The full site's not up there yet. This is the company Facebook page. I also have a personal Facebook page. You don't want to go there. That is simply a giant smartass comment contest for me. And that's my Twitter. Questions?
Check. Thank you. How do you get suspension of disbelief into a corporate scenario?
Well, I think it depends on the story and what the belief you have to suspend is, right? Yeah. I mean, I know that's a rather vague answer, but without knowing what the story, I don't know what disbelief has to be suspended. I mean, let's go to the insurance commercial world. There's nobody named Mayhem that lives in your car and causes you to crash. There's your suspension of disbelief, right?
How hard was it to convince Sullivan to go to the story angle versus the corporate spokesperson? Because that's a huge ego trip.
Yeah, it was considerably difficult. On this one, I kind of bulldozed them on it. You know, yeah, it was a let me show you, because I did do what they wanted me to do, which was go and cover that event. But I also made sure that we had permission to interview this guy, and I had time to do a quick pre-interview over the phone with him. So I kind of bulldozed my way through it, but I had to show it to him. And I would argue that unless you have a very savvy client, that's probably what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to show them something.
So who was the person at the client who called you, and at what point did they develop? They were really the ones that developed the story, correct?
The client for the Juan story?
Yeah.
Not really. They were the ones that called. All they wanted me to do was go and film the event.
So who was the one that decided they were going to give Juan that's when the story developed?
This guy.
So you picked Juan out?
Oh no, they had already picked one out. But in their mind, all this was going and shooting the event of them giving him a solar power system. Because all they were thinking about is them, right? Because that's what clients do. They think about, I want to show how bitchin' I am.
So you recommended to them to find somebody to...
No.
So
I had been recommending to them to find somebody that we could do a story on. When they came to me with Juan, even though that story was this giant gold nugget sitting in front of them, they were looking completely past it.
So who was the one who found Juan, connected Juan?
Sullivan Solar Power was.
Who was the person at Sullivan Solar Power?
You know what? I have no idea who the original contact was.
That would be a good story.
Yeah, actually it would.
Thank you. Michael, I noticed that Juan was looking, you were sitting to the side of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you debate on whether or not to have him talk straight into the camera or to the right?
Yes, and I think that a story that's that emotional, as a viewer, I don't want to be that close to it. I don't want to be looking right down the barrel of this guy telling me this horrible story about his life. I want to be somebody on the outside looking in. I want to get his eye line as close to camera as I can, so I'm going to slide the producer in next to the camera, so his eye line is just off camera, right? But yeah, I think that very emotional stories, it's almost too much to have them looking right at you.
Check.
How did Juan receive your asking him? I mean, because I assume the contact was through you because it wasn't through the client.
Yes.
So that's a difficult thing to share.
Yeah. The first conversation that I had, and I had this conversation in the pre-interview, I also had the conversation in the interview. And the first thing I started out with was, I am going to ask you questions about your experience and how you got to this point. If there is anything that I ask you that you do not want to answer, that's your control. You do not have to answer any question that I ask you. And luckily, he was fine with everything I asked. But I always give, in a story like that, I always give that interview subject the opportunity to opt out if I'm trying to take them too far. It's their life, and they can make the decision how much they want to share. Yeah.
So, Mike, when you have the talking head versus the story, and obviously the story is much more powerful, but for SoundPower, did they ever look at the actual numbers which converted better?
That's a very good question. How this one performed versus other ones? No, they never did. Yeah, and I have that problem with a lot of clients, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room that produce for corporate clients have that problem. We deliver them something, and they have no way to track it, or they don't know how to track it. I recently partnered with a creative agency that's more of a graphic and web design agency to try and help do some of that work for clients. But a lot of times those clients don't want to pay for that either. I mean, I can't get clients to pay for a friggin' makeup artist sometimes. And it's like, come on, man, I'm putting your CEO in front of a 4K camera that will show every single blemish on his or her face, and you don't want to spend money on a makeup artist? Nah, it's too much. Sorry, Melissa Street. Not today.
You don't offer suggestions, other things that they can use, or even a recommendation how to use YouTube analytics to see what's going on?
I have, but honestly, I'm not an expert at that. I mean, I know I can tell them that you can look at your analytics, you can find what kind of hits you're getting, you can find where things are dropping off, but that's a little outside of my expertise. So yeah, I do tell them that, but a lot of times it's just getting them to actually do it. And there's some clients that are great at it, that they understand that, and that's what they do. But there's other clients that, yeah.
Coming in hot.
If these big corporations are using video and they don't have any analytics, why are they even using video?
I'm not going to answer that because that's such a rhetorical question. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Why? If you're doing this without the ability to measure it, why are you doing it, right? You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times, the first time I have a contact with a client and they want to produce a video, I ask them the question, okay, what do you want the end result of the video to be? Is it to drive traffic to a website? Is it to, you know, inform about your product? What's the call to action? And so many of them have not even thought of that, right? I mean, those of us that have been working in this for years understand that what you have to do when building a video is start at this end, at the end, and figure out what are the results? What do you want the video to do? And then backtrack from there and figure out how you're going to design to reach that audience, to deliver that message point, to get those eyeballs wherever they want those eyeballs.
Any final questions before we begin to wrap up? This is Mike Towe. You don't get a chance to be with Mike Towe all the time.
You can talk to me anytime. Just
well,
send me
okay,
an
actually
email,
you can.
answer.
I mean, I swear. Yeah, you can buy him a beer. Actually, he'd be with him all the time.
Yeah, buy me a beer.
Buy him a beer, be with him. Take opportunity. Take an opportunity. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Towe.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Michael, leave your computer hot for a second,
Okay.
if you would, actually, because Tyler has a movie trailer that he wants to show us.
Cool.
So we're going to do our crapple, and we're going to show this quick trailer of something that they are working on. Where'd he go? Well, I'm just thinking that if we can bring up Vimeo on Michael's computer, then we're ready to go with video and audio. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So I will let the 2 or 3 of you sort that out while... Where's the stuff, Kevin?
Oh, let me bring my phone out and connect to it.
Well, or we can probably get you into the Wi-Fi network here, too.
In the meantime.
In the meantime.
In the meantime. A little chilly in here, so let's do the drum roll on our legs, people.
Yeah.
Here we go. What are we giving away? What's first?
Okay, first,
Pick something.
we have a Nikon bag.
We have a water sort of bladder for you when you're on production. You get real thirsty. And all 3 of these. All 3. And then a luggage tag. It's orange, so you can find out your luggage that's lost.
All right.
Yeah.
It's
Drum
a
roll.
threefer.
Drum roll. That's on your legs. Go. Drum roll.
Come on, hook that
What
up.
up?
Yay, there we go.
Lucky winner, 369644.
644.
644.
Come on. Oh, right in the face.
Yay.
Yes, Mom, I'm coming.
Yeah, you got the URL. Go.
Who won it? We get a winner?
We did. We got a winner. Ooh, what's this?
Okay, this is a Frisbee, believe it or not, and it comes with a handy-dandy little carrying case. Here's also a lens cleaner that actually has a...
Has a little hanger there. You can hang it on your clothes. And then we have a little pop-top thing for your cell phone. And these are all from different places that we got in AP.
All right, drum roll, please.
What do we got?
Go.
Oh, you gave me 2.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the one you want.
This is it. This is absolutely it. 369625. 625. Woohoo!
How many more?
Okay.
Another
This
one?
one
2 or 3.
It is a bag from Scale Logic Incorporated, and here is a LCD
An OLED screen cleaner kit from Flanders Scientific. And in the bag, it also has some other little goodies in here that is
Looks
cool.
like a chip clip.
It looks like a little clip. Yeah, a little clip here
Chip clip-ish.
with a magnet on it. Oh, it's very cool. Let's go.
There you go. Drum roll, please. And cut. Go.
369599. Oh, hey.
Taylor. Yeah?
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Here we have another screening kit from Flanders and a T-shirt from Flanders Scientific. Oh, they gave out a lot of cool stuff.
Sure did. So. All right, drum roll. You guys are just not in
No.
it. Cut. Jeez.
369622.
622.
622.
Oh,
All right.
on the back. You got to record your own winning. What else do you got? Anything else? We have a bag. These are 10 cents at the store. You can take it for free, too. We're giving that away. And some straws.
Ooh, what do we got here?
A hat from Glyph Technologies and another cleaning kit.
All right, Flanders was very generous.
All right, no drum roll. And here you go.
369603.
603.
603.
Jeez. Clean the lens on your drone. Nice.
All right, last but not least.
Last but not least.
This is a little case from Nanook, and it's a little holder here. It's very cool. It will hold all sorts of cool little stuff. The guy told me it's not waterproof, so you can't put your iPhone in it and go scuba diving, but it's water resistant. Hard plastic. It's cool.
Look at that color.
All right, going deep, going deep.
And this isn't on the market yet, by the way.
Oh.
And
Not
cut.
on the market.
Ooh, I got to get a different one for that then. Here it is. So what do we got?
369619.
The 619.
619.
All right. And
That
the
it?
bag.
And the bag.
You want the bag? We give the bag away. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. And now, as we're wrapping up, to say thank you to Hangar B, you're going to show us a movie trailer for a project that you are working on. Tell us a little bit about it.
Mindframe is actually an episodic, so this is a pilot series. Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, so this is a trailer we cut a little while back. We have 2 more half days of production, and then we are wrapped. And we've been kind of editing as we go because we started the project actually January of last year when we first moved in here, and then it started growing and growing in our minds. It was initially going to just be this kind of short, like, video, just like, hey, we made this cool thing, let's put this out there. But then we realized we really needed to tell the story properly, so we took our time with it, and this is the trailer for that. So enjoy.
Happy birthday, dear Lindsay.
There have been 34 homicides in the city since January. There's a lot of guilt that comes with that.
Do you think it's wise to go to another crime scene right now?
I have to.
Very nicely done. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Fourth Wednesday, June 26th, we're going to talk about film festivals. It's going to be at Options for All. Is he still here? Okay, and we'll see you then. In the meantime, check out our YouTube channel, like our posts on Facebook and Instagram. We're trying to expand our reach. So thank you for being here.